Hi guys, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ifeoluwa. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to cut and sew this detachable keyhole neckline yoke with bell sleeves. If this is something you're interested in learning, stick around and watch this video to the end. I appreciate all those who have subscribed to my channel. Thank you very much. And if you are seeing this video and you haven't subscribed yet, please do well to subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up so it can be visible to more people. And also feel free to leave your comments or your questions in the comment section. Thank you very much, guys. Now let's get started. So these are the measurements I'll need for this tutorial: my bust, waist, the waistline measurements, the across back measurement, which is shoulder to shoulder, the armhole circumference, and the bust point. So the bust point is not really necessary, but I'm just going to include that. Then I forgot to put in the sleeve length and the sleeve width, so you can just measure that. Now I'm going to measure out my chest line measurement, which is my armhole divided by 2. So 16 divided by 2 is 8 inches. Then I'll mark out my bust point and then my waistline measurement. So I'm going to do the same thing at the other side and then connect together. It's a straight line. So this is my shoulder line, the chest line, the bust point, and then the waistline. Now I'm going to take my across back measurement, which is the shoulder to shoulder measurement. That is 15 divided by 2. So I'll mark it on my shoulder line and the chest line. Then I'm going to connect it together. Now to create the armhole, I'm going to come down by 1 inch or the shoulder line, and whatever I have left, I'll divide by 2 and mark the point. So from that point, I'll take in 0.75. Now on the chest line, I have my bust measurement divided by 4. So I'm going to mark that on the chest line. Then I'm going to connect my armhole curve with my French curve. Now I'm going to create my neckline. So I'm going to be using 3.5 inches for the width and 3 inches for the depth of my neckline. So I'm going to connect that with my French curve, and then I'm going to draw out my shoulder slants. Then I'm going to take my dart measurement, which is really not necessary for this tutorial. So my dart is my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2. So 8 inches divided by 2 is 4 inches. Then I'm going to take 0.5 inches on both sides. So that is 1 inch altogether for the dart allowance. Then I'm going to connect together. So I'll be connecting the dart together from the bust points. Now since I already have my chest line measurements, I'm going to take my waistline measurement, which is my waist divided by 4 plus the 1 inch that we added as the dart allowance. So I'm going to connect it from my chest line down to my waistline. So from this neckline that I have made, I'm going to come down by 3 inches. So it depends on how wide you want that part of your yoke to be. So for mine, I just want it to be at 3 inches. Then at the side, I'm going to come down by 1.5 inches. So from that point, I'm going to use a curve to connect it into the neckline. So once you're satisfied with what you have, you can go ahead to cut it out. So this is going to be the front pattern. Now let's move on to the back pattern. So for the back, the first thing I'm going to do is to take my zip allowance, which is 1 inch. So I'm going to connect that together. Then I'll measure out my chest line and then my waist line. So I'm going to use my chest line, the same thing I used at the front, and the waistline, the same thing I used at the front. Then I'm going to connect together. So this is the shoulder line, the chest line, and then the waistline. Then this line is going to be my center back line. Now on the shoulder line, from the center back line, I'm going to take my across back measurements, which is the shoulder to shoulder measurement. And I'm going to connect it from the shoulder line to the chest line. Now on the shoulder line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and whatever I have left, I'll divide by 2 and mark that point. Now from that point, I'm going to come in by 0.5. Now on the chest line, I'm going to take my bust measurement divided by 4 from the center back line. Then I'm going to mark that and connect my armhole. Now for the neckline, I'm also going to use the same width I used at the front. So I'm using 3.5 inches for my width. So I'm going to take it from the center back line, and then I'm going to take my neck depth, which is 1 inch, and I'll connect together. Then I'll connect my shoulder slants together. Now on the waistline, I'm going to come in by 1 inch and then connect to the chest line. Then from the new points, I'm going to take my waist measurements divided by 4 plus 1 inch for that. Then I'm going to connect from the chest line to the waistline. So for the dart, which is also not necessary, I'm going to be using the 4 inches I used at the front. So from the original center back line, I'll take the 4 inches and then take 0.5 inches on both sides. Then I'll connect together. So this is going to be the new zipper allowance. Now the same way I came down by 1.5 inches for the front, I'm going to do the same thing for the back so that the sides will align. So 1.5 inches here, and then I'm going to connect with a straight line. So I want it to be straight, so I'm also going to come down by 1.5 inches here. Then I'm going to connect together. So this is it for the back pattern. Then I'll proceed to cut out. So you make sure the sides align together before you cut out on fabric, so you can see how it looks like. Then I'm going to proceed to cut out on my fabric now. So this is the front pattern on my fabric. I folded it into two, so you make sure the front pattern is on fold. Then I'm going to be adding 1/2 inch on every side, but for the side seam I'm going to be adding 1.5 inches for the side seam allowance. So I'll proceed to cut out now. So I'm going to cut out 2 of this fabric because I want to use one part as the lining. So because this is a lace fabric, I'm going to be using this lace fabric as the lining also. But if you're using another type of fabric, maybe like an Ankara fabric, you can cut out a lining for it. But for this, I'm just going to be using the same fabric twice. Now for the back pattern, I also folded my fabric into 2, so you can have 2 pieces while cutting. So I'm going to add 0.5 inches round, but for the side seam I'm going to be using 1.5 inches. So you don't need to add any allowance for the zip allowance because we already have the zip allowance there. It's already present. So now I'm going to also cut out another of this. So I'm going to have 4 pieces of fabric all together. So I'm going to be using it as the lining. So because this back pattern is not on fold, that is why we have 4 pieces all together. Now I'm going to measure out my armhole because I want to create my sleeve now. So my armhole, I'm going to measure it out on the pattern paper itself, not the fabric. Then you don't need to add the allowance. So I have about 9 inches here for the front pattern, and then for the back pattern, when I measured it out, I had about 9 inches also. So by the time you add the 2 together, you have 18 inches divided by 2, which is 9 inches. So 9 inches is going to be what we are going to be using for our armhole curve on the sleeve. Now I'm going to measure out my sleeve length, which is 26 inches. So I'm going to label this part as my sleeve cap. Now from the sleeve cap, I'm going to come down by 4 inches. I'm going to do it here and also do it at the other side, then connect together. Now from the sleeve cap, I'm going to create my armhole curve. So I have 9 inches. So when you slant your tape like that, you measure out the 9 inches and then you draw out a curve. Then I'm going to measure out my sleeve width on my wrist. So I have 9 inches for mine divided by 2, which is 4.5 inches. Then I'm going to connect from that point to that point. So this is what I have for my basic long sleeve pattern. Then I'm going to transfer it to my fabric. So on the fabric, I already folded fabric into 4 parts, but make sure that where you are cutting from is going to be on fold. All sides must be on fold. So you can see that part, all sides are on fold. So I have 4 pieces, 4 parts all together. So for the sleeve cap, I'm going to add 1/2 inch for my sleeve allowance, for the allowance for the sleeve cap. So I'm going to add 1/2 inch there, and then here by the side I'm going to measure out 1.5 inches for the sleeve allowance. Now for the lower parts, because we want it to be a bell sleeve, we want it to be wide at the lower part, I'm going to measure out what I have there. So I'm going to just be using the whole of this fabric. So you can measure out as less as 10 inches and as much as 15 to 16 inches. So I left mine at about 16 inches here. Then I connected from the armhole down to that part. Now let's move on to the sewing part. Now for the front pattern, you know we cut out 2 pieces. So I have 1 piece as the fabric and the other piece as the lining. So I'm going to join them together. The front sides should be facing the front sides. It should be facing each other. So I'm going to join that together, and then I'll sew the neck line area by 0.5 inches. That is the allowance we left. So I'm going to sew it round like that. Then after sewing the upper neckline, I'm also going to sew the lower parts of the neckline. So I'm going to do the same thing for the back pattern. So you remember that we have 4 pieces all together. So I'm going to sew the neckline there and also the lower parts by 0.5 inches. So this is what I have after sewing the neckline together. Now next thing I'm going to do is to join the shoulders together. So this is what I have after joining the shoulders together. So because I want the sleeve to be a little bit fancy, I'm just going to add this fabric to it and pleat it at the bottom. So this is what I have after pleating at the bottom. Then I'm going to add my sleeves to the yoke. So I'll notch out the midpoint of the armhole parts. Then I'm going to attach the sleeve to the yoke. So starting from the midpoint of the armhole and the midpoint of the shoulder slant. So I'm going to start attaching from there and then pin together and take it to my machine to sew. So this is it after attaching the sleeve to the yoke. Then I'm going to sew my side seam. So I left 1.5 inches as the side seam, so I'm going to sew that together. So the next thing left to do is to fix my zip. So I'm going to be using open and close zip, so that by the time you open it up, it will be easy for you to wear. So this is it after fixing the zip. So if you want, you can use a weaving machine to weave off the armhole area, or you can just use a bias tape to turn it over. So guys, this is the end of the tutorial. Thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed this tutorial, do not forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. So I'm going to see you guys in my next video. Bye.